everyone, and welcome back to the Healing Entrepreneur podcast. I am your host, Rowana Abbensetts-Dobson, and today we are speaking with Christie Ann Cruise, Dr. Christie Ann Cruise, excuse me. Christie, in addition to being a great friend of mine and a writer and a poet, Christie is an educator, an author, a social justice advocate, and she has a passion for empowering Black women and girls to speak their truth boldly and unapologetically. And you all know that is something I can definitely get on board with. And so Christie has a new book coming out, Thick Black Lines. And I have had the pleasure to read this book and just be a part of her publishing journey. And I'm so grateful. So, everyone, please give a warm welcome to Christie Ann Cruise.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on, Rowana. I really appreciate it. I appreciate you and the work that you're doing with Spoken Black Girl Publishing and just being able to be on this journey with me and help me with marketing and advertising and all those good things related to the book. So thank you.
You are so welcome. It was just a pleasure and an honor when you asked me to be a part of this. So, you know, really, the pleasure is all mine, and I've been enjoying the journey with you. Um, Christie, I just want to know more about you. You're just one of those people, you just this mysterious poet woman, and I want to know more about you. When did you know that you were a poet or a writer?
I knew in elementary school. I have been writing stories as far back as I can remember. I remember I got third place in a story writing contest for our district, my school district in elementary school. I think I was maybe in the fifth grade or the fourth grade. And I still remember it was called Tommy in Trouble. Tommy in Trouble.
What was that about?
Tommy was falling in with the wrong crowd. And Tommy fell
I
in with the
love
wrong
it.
crowd and he got into some trouble and he needed some help. And so I wrote this story about this little boy who was growing up in the inner city like myself and got mixed up with the wrong crowd and needed some help. And so his community, his school, teachers, and parents stepped in to help Tommy get out of trouble.
That's
Um,
amazing.
yeah, yeah.
Where
So
are
I
you
used to
from? You
I'm
mentioned,
originally from East St. Louis, Illinois. So it's
okay,
um it's Southern Illinois, close to St. Louis, Missouri, but we're on the Illinois side of the Mississippi River.
okay, good to know, good to
Yeah, so born
know.
and raised in East St. Louis. And yeah, so my writing was I started writing little stories in elementary school, and then I remember my dad bought me a journal,
Yeah.
and so I've been journaling since. I actually still have my very first journal,
You
and
do?
I yeah, one of those little journals, the little one with the lock that
Mm-hmm.
everybody could break into, right?
So easy to break into.
So easy to break into, and my journal was broken into many times. I had no privacy in my home. And so that journal was like 1988, 1989. So yeah, that
Wow,
was
you still
mine. So
have it?
I still have that journal. I still have that journal. I have all of my journals. I have all of my journals.
Wow.
So I've been writing, whether it's poetry or short stories, and journaling for a long time, as long as I can remember.
Okay, so you're not only a poet, you write short stories, you write articles, you write essays, you write books.
I- Yeah, so
Yeah.
I mostly write poetry and essays as a creative. As an academic, I have written academic articles um, and peer-reviewed articles as an academic. But as a creative, essays and poetry is where my love is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. So I was wondering, so you have three books, correct? Or now it's going to be three.
Well, I've been included in an anthology,
Yeah.
which is Hills into the Soil, Breaking the Silence, and that was an anthology with the International Women's Writing Guild, part of a mentoring program with students in the Boston Public Schools. And so I had a mentor, a 17-year-old writer who I work with, and together we came up with our own poems, but together we came up with four poems, two each, to be included in the book. And then
Oh,
I self-published my first book, which was It Don't Hurt Now, My Journey of Self-Love and Self-Acceptance. And that was um, prose writing, it was poetry, there were excerpts from my journals that I included in there. And then Thick Black Lines will be released June 28th, but we started pre-sales today, February.
yay!
Yes, yes. So I'm super excited.
Congratulations.
To have everyone to read this book. I'm excited about the book. I have grown so much as a writer in the past few years, especially since self-publishing It Don't Hurt Now, and then looking at where I am now as a writer and just that journey of finding my village, finding organizations that offered workshops, and joining organizations and researching different groups and meeting folk and going to conferences and workshops. So I feel like It Don't Hurt Now was was something that needed to come out. It needed
Hmm.
to like, it was part of my healing journey. And so that
Hmm.
needed to come out, but I definitely I was not a creative writer in that way. I hadn't been trained. I don't have a
Hmm.
MFA or a creative writing background. So it was me really just trying to find my way.
Yeah.
This book, you see a more polished writer. And so I'm really proud of just taking ownership of my writing and doing what I needed to do to become a better writer. Because I knew I wasn't going back to get an MFA. I have
Hmm.
a bachelor's, a master's, and a PhD, and I'm like, I'm no, no. So I'm like, curriculum can I create for myself? What can I create for myself to be a better writer? And so I feel like that's what you'll see in Thick Black Lines is a stronger and more confident writer.
Beautiful. Yes,
Mm,
y'all. Make sure you get your pre-orders in. You mentioned writing being a part of your healing journey, particularly with your first book, but also with Thick Black Lines.
yeah.
How did writing Thick Black Lines help with your healing journey, or what do you feel like you were processing while you were writing this book?
Yeah, Thick Black Lines, I started writing, pieces of that. Just like some pieces came like right after I wrote and released It Don't Hurt Now, and I they were from notes, and then I just kind of honed in on those. But a lot of the inspiration from Thick Black Lines came when I took a sabbatical, and so I took time off and traveled for um it's about 14 months, and I traveled across the US and the Caribbean. And this sabbatical was important in a lot of ways because in 2019, I lost my mother. My mother passed away unexpectedly,
Mm.
and that was very traumatic. And it it took me almost 9 months just to accept that my mother was gone and she was not coming back. Um,
Mm.
and then around like later that year in 2019, I remember in like August when the Amazon rainforest was burning horribly. I mean, it was just, you saw the videos and the pictures of the thick black clouds and smoke.
Yeah, I
And I
remember.
remember just this feeling of, I felt like a feeling of doom almost, because I'm like, oh my God, who sets fire and intentionally burns the Amazon rainforest? When we think about how important the Amazon rainforest
Yeah.
and just rainforests in general are to our livelihood, to our health and our well-being. And the the rainforest provides, like, it's the lungs and the oxygen for
Mm-hmm.
Earth. And I remember just being devastated and just started grief. So then there was the grief over that. And I just remember thinking, we're gonna pay for this. We're all gonna pay for
Yeah.
this. Like, this
Mm-hmm.
is, we have not been good stewards. And so
Yeah.
that was just really depressing. And then around December of 2019, you heard all this talk of this new virus.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be worse than the flu, and then so it was like, okay, and then by March of 2020 we were shelter in place.
Yeah. Shut
And
down.
so I felt like I was in this perpetual state of grief, like losing my
Mm.
mom, then the rainforest, and then being separated from people that I love. I live by myself, I don't have any children. So like, you couldn't go see folk if folk had, you just, because you didn't know, you didn't want to get anybody sick.
Yeah.
It was just, and so I was isolated. And as an introvert, it was fine for the first few months. Cause I was like, okay, I ain't gotta go nowhere. This is my thing. Ain't nobody gonna ask me to meet them nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
But then it just became very, again, this heaviness of this grief. Um, and then around like April or May of 2020 is when my closest cousin, who was my first friend, um, she let me know that her cancer was back and it had metastasized, and
Mm-hmm.
that, she was gonna fight, but it was not looking good. And she was just a year older
Mm-hmm.
than me. And then that October, she passed away. And so it was just a lot of just grief.
Yeah.
And so I took the sabbatical because I needed to leave my hometown. I needed to leave that area. I was in Illinois at the time. And it was just very painful to be there for a lot of reasons. And so I took the sabbatical to heal, to really to look at grief in the face, to feel it, and to do what I needed to do to begin the healing journey. And then also 2020 was also traumatic in that, we watched George Floyd get murdered. We saw Breonna Taylor get murdered. Like, there was just this slaughtering almost of Black folk. And then the images and the videos being played everywhere on social
Mm.
media. So it was just this grief and this heaviness. And then this, I felt like this almost reckoning in the country and also across
Yeah.
the world of, like, we have not been bullshitting about how we are treated in this
Yeah.
country, right? It's unfortunate that it is taken for us to die on camera, um, over and over and over again. But there was this grief around that and this heaviness, and just, it was a lot. And so Thick Black Lines really is inspired by that grief, some of the grief, the depression, the anti-Blackness that was going on, just the um, just the heaviness of the situations that were going on in my life. over that period of time.
Yes. Thank you so much for sharing that, Christy, and just being vulnerable with us about, what brought you to write this book. I think a lot of people are going to be able to relate to your story. I think that over the past few years, and you mentioned like from 2019 up until now, and in addition to the, personal losses that you suffered, there's been just so much heaviness going on in the world. And I think a lot of people are grieving, not only friends and relatives, for sure, because, I myself had a few people pass during the pandemic, and it was like almost surreal. You didn't want to
Yeah,
believe that so much was happening. But then now there's almost like a shift to kind of almost rewrite that narrative, or move quickly move past such a heavy time. And I do think a lot of people are still dealing with grief. Um, and so it's very, it's definitely a beautiful tribute to be able to bring art out of that.
yes,
So,
yeah.
you know,
And I'm
Ashe, kudos
grateful
to
for
you for
the,
bringing that
thank you,
art into the world.
thank
Yeah,
you. And I'm grateful for being blessed with the space to be able to do that. I
yeah,
definitely don't take it for granted that I was able to take a year, take 14 months, and to just focus on writing, to do the thing that I love and that is healing for me. And out of it came this work of art. And so I definitely don't take it for granted that I was blessed with the opportunity to be able to do that.
yes, because so many people, I mean, I guess one thing that writers say a lot of times is like, I don't have the time to write, and that's why there are so many, spaces and retreats and conferences and things like that, just to kind of like get in the zone and write. So I
Mhm.
will always big up any author, any writer, anybody who puts themselves out there, because there's often not a lot of time allotted to our joy or our pleasure or our healing, our rest.
Yeah,
So that was, you know, an act of self-care. And
yeah,
also, we're just glad that you were able to, capture those feelings and share it with us all.
me too. Thank you.
You're welcome. So you mentioned working in academia and um being
Yeah.
able, yeah, and taking a sabbatical from academia and working in that academic space. And recently there's been so much in the news about, what can we do to support Black women in higher education.
Mhm.
We've heard about the resignation slash ousting, I will say, of Claudine Gay at Harvard. So, what would you say to Black women working in these higher education spaces when it comes to preserving your peace?
Yeah. So I actually first left higher education in 2016. And I left because it was the nature of the work that I do anyway, which is social justice and equity work, is very demanding. It's very isolating at times. And it's often thankless work, and it's not warm fuzzies, and it's
Mm,
getting your hands dirty and not only speaking truth to power but holding power um accountable, right? And doing it in these predominantly white spaces, in these predominantly white spaces that were not created for people who look like me, um, as a woman and as a Black person. So I left higher ed in 2016 because I knew that I needed a break. I knew that the years of doing this work had taken a toll on my mental health and
Mhm.
well-being, and that I needed a break. And so I had already started my own consulting business and was doing editing and proofreading with That's Right, for students working on their doctoral dissertation. So I still wanted to focus on higher ed, but in a different way. I love writing, academic writing and research and editing. And it's one of the ways in which I support Black women. And other marginalized populations is by helping them to be able to achieve their educational goals.
Yes,
And
I mean, that's a great segue. Could you say more about That's Right and No More Margins?
yeah, so That's Right is my consulting business where I provide academic coaching, consulting, editing, and proofreading to students working on their master's degrees, master's theses, and doctoral dissertations, but primarily doctoral level students. I do coaching from anywhere to writing your dissertation proposal to preparing for your dissertation defense, doing editing of your chapters 1 through 5. And then I also recently started a creative arm of That's Right, which is No More Margins. And that is geared towards providing support, writing support, creative writing support to Black women. And so we have a monthly writing group that will be online now. Where we get together, we do free writing, we do reflections, we provide feedback, and just a safe space for Black women to share their work and be encouraged and supported. And then I am currently working on a No More Margins retreat for Black women next year in Sedona. And so I'll have more information about that as it becomes available on my website, which is ChristieAnnCruise.com. So that's ChristieAnncruise.com. And so just really passionate about making sure that I provide spaces for women, Black women and girls to be able to achieve whatever goals they have around writing. Um, and yeah, around writing, creativity, art, um, academia. So yeah. And so I also worked when I was doing That's Right, I was a consultant for the Boys and Girls Clubs of Greater St. Louis and really enjoyed being able to work with kids who were primarily from the St. Louis public schools. And then I took my sabbatical and traveled for 14 months. And then I went back into higher education. And it has been challenging. And I realized why I left higher education. I think about Dr. Claudine Gay, and I think about Dr. Candia Bailey, who was the vice president who recently died by suicide um, after bullying and harassment at Lincoln University in Missouri. And I even think about now with Fannie Willis and just these spaces where people are I feel like intentionally trying to destroy really
Mm.
Black women. And it's disheartening, it's stressful, it's unfortunate. And so, I myself am in the process of really doing some soul searching and looking at um, transitioning out of higher education permanently this time, because it's a lot, and it does impact your mental health, whether you have mental health issues or you don't.
Mm.
Um, it's almost like this intentional, um, this intentional plan, um, to 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 push Black folk, especially Black women, to the limit. And
Yeah.
I don't buy into that strong Black woman trope.
Mm,
Um, and so I definitely take the time that I need, for self-care, for mental health, first aid,
yes.
um, because I've struggled with depression and anxiety, for the majority of my adult life. And I understand what it's like to be in situations where you are suicidal, where you're having thoughts of harming yourself or taking your own life. And there is no job on this earth that is worth that. No job.
Exactly.
And so,
Yes.
you have to know when to step aside, and there are resources. There are resources at your job to be able to do that. And I don't know that a lot of us know that there are
Mm,
resources, that you can take FMLA for mental health, that a lot
let
of
them
a lot
know.
of companies do have leave of absences, that you can take a leave of absence for mental health, that you can apply for short-term disability, that there's resources and things that you can do to take care of yourself. And it's not being weak, it is taking care of your mental and physical well-being so that you are okay.
Yes.
And there are resources and things that you can do. A lot of companies have employee assistance programs where they offer a certain number of free counseling sessions. And so we just have to be vocal about the resources that are available and the things that you can do to take care of yourself, in these
Yes.
places that are intentionally trying to push us out.
Yes. And I think finding community, you
Yes,
know, is essential because we don't want anyone to feel so alone in that situation that you just feel like there's no other way out.
yes,
And I feel like one thing that Black women are really good at doing is finding each other, catching each other, making that support system and that net so that, none of our sisters have to feel like they're up against the whole world by themselves, which is
yeah.
how it feels a lot of the time.
Yeah.
So,
And just and being vulnerable and letting your support system know
mm,
what's going
that
on.
part.
Like, I definitely reached out to my support group. Like, I'm like, look, this is what's going on. I am feeling anxious. I'm in the middle of panic attack. Like, I am like, this is what's going on. I need you all to pray for me. I need your help. I sent text messages to my friends, and folk were like, what do you need? Calling me, supporting me, sending me scripture, sending me just words of encouragement. And it was really, really helpful.
Yeah.
And so I would say definitely don't be afraid to let your village, to let folk know in your community that you're struggling.
Yeah. I think
Um,
that's the part that is the more revolutionary part because I feel like a lot of people are used to just kind of keeping that all inside because
mhm,
they don't want other people to know for various reasons,
yes.
whether it's like a mental health issue and you just don't might feel shame or feel the stigma or anything like that. Like we need to move past that, you know,
Mhm,
and be more open talking about well, that's one of the reasons why I'm open talking about mental health because I just want other people to feel like they can be open and talk about that with me.
mhm.
So I feel like the more of that we do, the more we normalize, it's okay to be going through, um, these periods where you're struggling with your mental health. Um,
And
so
that there is
yeah,
hope. There is hope and there is support. Yeah.
yes. So Christine, I would like, I would love actually for
Okay.
you to read a poem from Thick Black Lines so that we can just get a taste, a sense of this book.
Okay. Do you have a preference of a poem from Thick Black Lines that you would like to hear?
Maybe something from Black.
Ooh, okay. Something from Black. All right. I am going
So
to,
if you don't know, Thick Black Lines is in three parts, Thick Black and Lines.
yes.
So
Ooh, yeah.
just so that the listeners are like, what does she mean? I want to hear like from Black. So
Yes. So yes, there's three parts. Thick, which is focuses on those things that are heavy that we carry. Black, focuses on the experiences of some Black folk, majority of Black folk, I would say, in these United States. And lines are about those things that are policy that are meant to intentionally separate us.
mm,
So I think I'm going to read, hmm, I think I'm going to read Other. How about that? I'll read
I
Other.
like that. Yes.
And Other is from Black. And I have it. Okay, I think this is it. Here we go. Other. It was a Tuesday, the first time I realized I would never really be accepted, that this society only wanted my Black body for labor, exploitation, appropriation. On that Tuesday, my Black voice was silenced. The tears of a white woman pushed my Black experience to the margin until I was invisible. At work, I listened to white women share how a new book had empowered them to lean in. It was a Thursday. I remember thinking I would need to be a contortionist to lean in from the margin, leaning into a table to which I was never invited. It was a Sunday, the first time I was told by people who looked like me that I was not enough. On that Sunday, I came to know the psychological devastation of racism, its manifestation as internalized oppression and colorism. I was too dark to matter. In class, the professor referred to others. It was a Wednesday. As he continued to lecture, I realized I was who he meant. I was the other, nameless, faceless, nothingness. I was alien, different, marginal. I sat in that space, present yet absent. It was a Saturday, the first time I rested in the beauty of my Black womanhood, when I spoke my truth boldly. On that Saturday, I came to understand my power in whose image I was created. I fashioned my own table, invited my sisters, and we loved one another fiercely. Thank you.
Yeah, I like to snap, 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 snap. Yes.
Thank you.
That's one of my favorites.
That's one of your favorites. Okay, okay.
And as we can tell, y'all, Christie has a way with words, just powerfully hits you with those lines, and you feel like you're right there in it.
Mm,
So this is more than a poetry book, y'all. This is like an experience. And I can't wait for you to experience it.
thank you. Thank you.
Please tell the people again, like, where can we find you? Can we support you?
Yeah, so you can find me on my website, www.christieanncruise.com. So that's www.christieanncruise.com. From there, you can click the link on the picture of thick black lines. So you can pre-order the book. As I said, pre-sales began today and will go through May 3rd, and the book will be released June 28th. You can also sign up for our mailing list. I do a quarterly newsletter and I do a monthly blog. And so if you want to stay in the know, you can sign up for the mailing list. And then there's also information about no more margins, and that's right on that website as well.
Okay, y'all. So you heard, go check it out. And Christie is an amazing mentor and friend and writer and all of that. So definitely someone that you want to be connected with. Thank you so much for speaking to us today, Dr. Christie Ann Cruise.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me, Rowana. I greatly appreciate it. Thank you.
You are so welcome.